Hello, my name is Nick Cioli,
And I'm Jack Cioli.
and this is the Super Cioli Bros podcast. This week, we're going to be talking about some actual comics that have been coming out recently. So the first one that we're going to talk about is a comic that you haven't read, that I've been reading, and that is Uncanny X-Men, number 31. And I have a problem with the issue that is entirely plot related, so if you don't want to get spoiled on the last, 5 or 6 issues of Uncanny X-Men, then I would advise you fast forward maybe 4 or 5 minutes ahead. But so basically, the plot that's been going on in Uncanny is the original Sin tie-in, which is the last will and testament of Charles Xavier, and basically the plot has been having to deal with this mutant who's incredibly powerful that Xavier found when he was a kid. He hadn't told anybody about him, but what Xavier did was he erased the memory that this kid had, that he even had mutant powers, because the first thing he accidentally did with them was kill his entire family. So, Xavier drops by, wipes his mind so he forgets about it, and then every so often he would go back and make sure that the mental blocks were still up. And then, so obviously, a couple years ago, Xavier died, and obviously he couldn't keep doing that while he was dead. So this guy who's about in his 20s finds out that he has these superpowers by again accidentally killing people. And part of Xavier's will was that the X-Men go and take whoever their most powerful telepath is at that moment and go make sure that the mental blocks are still up, and it turns out that they are not. And so there's been this whole issue of dealing with him and trying to get him to control his powers, because another thing he accidentally did was blow up an entire SHIELD helicarrier. And so throughout the course, Scott Cyclops has been especially prominent in trying to get him to join his cause, since he's kind of the modern Magneto. And so this mutant, whose name is Matthew, has killed a ton of people, and SHIELD launches an attack on him that ends up killing him, Illyana, Rasputin, Magik, and Scott Cyclops. But then this guy comes back alive and then kills all the SHIELD people who launched that attack, and then he goes to the Jean Grey school and accidentally kills Emma Frost. And I knew that obviously, those deaths weren't going to be permanent. But the way that they dealt with the problem and resolved the problem, I felt was a massive cop-out. Basically, Ava Bell, she's a new mutant. She first debuted, I think, in the first issue of All New X-Men, but first issue or two. She can time travel, and basically what she does unilaterally, she doesn't consult anyone else. She goes back in time, gets Xavier while he's still alive, and then they travel back in time to when Matthew's parents first met and made it so they didn't meet. So he just never existed. Which, I don't know. I mean, I was hoping that, the heroes of the X-Men book would somehow be able to teach this guy how to use his powers instead of just wiping him off of existence.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
And then the last little bit is, so She-Hulk, who is of course a lawyer, was the one reading the will to the X-Men, and the will said that he would reveal the rest of the will after they dealt with this mutant. So when Ava returns back to the new present, obviously that mutant didn't have to be dealt with since he never existed. So they're finishing up the will, and Xavier gave everything to Cyclops, but he named Storm the alternate in case something had happened to Cyclops. And so everyone at the Xavier school was kind of pissed that Cyclops got the school, because they've kind of had a rivalry with after Cyclops killed Xavier. There was a big falling out. And then he storms off and says that he gives it all to Storm, and that Storm and the Jean Grey school should take all the mutants that Emma Frost, and Magik had been training. So, like, it's obviously a huge issue because that's 31 issues of Cyclops trying to teach this alternate school, and then he just gives it up at the end. But I just hated how it resolved the mutant story.
Wait, so why? I guess we can talk about that another time. I don't really get why he would give all that, why he would give up his own students.
Yeah, it was because he kind of knew that he disappointed Xavier, because Ava Bell ends up coming back to the present and telling Cyclops that she's just gonna like shadow him, making sure that he doesn't do any more stupid stuff. And I think that kind of broke his will a little, and so he just gave up teaching.
Weird. Well, yeah, that time travel erasing thing is real messed up.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of sets an alarming precedent for the X-Men.
Yeah.
Like, one, I'm kind of surprised it hadn't happened already in some story, and who knows? I mean, I've been reading the X-Men comics my entire life, so there's plenty of X-Men stuff that I've never seen. But like, just going back, I don't know. It's like such an extreme step.
Yeah, it seems like the most unheroic solution beyond just murdering the guy.
Yeah.
And based on what you said, it seems like the only reason they didn't do that is because it wasn't possible.
Yeah, I mean, it was just really disappointing. All right, so the next comic we're going to talk about actually came out last week. It didn't come out this week, but that is Amazing Spider-Man number 14, which is the end of Spider-Verse.
Right, and I don't think we've really talked about this much together, have we?
I don't think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we haven't talked about it at all, like even off the podcast.
Yeah, so my thoughts on it are, it felt like this whole event was like an advertisement for a bunch of other books, you know? Like, I think we might have, I don't think we've talked about the book since the first issue, but it really feels like every issue was just people reacting to stuff that happened in other comics that was not part of like the main story, you know? Like, there would be like maybe one piece of forward momentum, but like most of the particularly interesting stuff would be like, now go check out Scarlet Spiders #2 for this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna make an analogy that will probably fail since I suck at analogies, but I know it's almost like a tree where Amazing Spider-Man is like the trunk of the tree, but all the tie-ins are the branches with all the pretty leaves. So like you can look at just the trunk, but it doesn't really do anything for you because like you said, almost all of the action takes place in these tie-ins.
Yeah, and like there's some nice like payoff moments in this one. Like you finally get to see all the spiders kind of thrash with these guys who have been built up over the series as these unstoppable murder machines, which has been pretty cool. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's some decent parts. I really like the part with Spider Girl ultimately refusing to like kill people. You know, she had been throughout the series very vocal about her desire to murder these guys because they killed her family and eventually kidnapped her baby brother. But they like ultimately in the end she realizes that that's wrong, you know. And I'm a sucker for moments like that in superhero stuff.
I mean, throughout the story, we kept seeing how these do they have a name?
I don't know what they're called. Moreland is like the main guy, but I don't know if they have a collective name.
Yeah, I'll just say bad guys, but like the bad guys have been like almost unstoppable. So you kind of got the feeling that like how are they gonna beat these guys without killing them, you know, which happens sometimes in superhero media where creators think that the only way to resolve a fight is to kill the bad guy. And obviously, I wasn't expecting that to happen, but I was mostly curious how they would rationalize it not happening. And
Right.
I think they did that well.
Yeah, yeah. The solution to the problem, I think, is really solid.
One thing I know that I believe that next amazing issue is like an epilogue to Spider
Right.
Verse,
Yeah.
and I hope they address something that I thought was going to be a bigger part of this story, especially after a reveal in the previous issue of Amazing, which was so this is every Spider-Man ever. So the superior Spider-Man, Doc Ock Spidey, is there, and current Peter Spider-Man is there. And there's a part where, like, throughout the first few issues, Peter kind of made Spidey Ock think that he was a past version of himself, so that pretty much make sure that Doc Ock didn't kill him, because if he made Doc Ock think that if he killed him, then he would wipe himself out. But there's a
Right.
part in the second to last issue where Spider-Ock figures out that he's the Peter in his own future that he loses somehow. And I was expecting that to kind of come back in this issue, maybe, like where Superior would attack Amazing Spider-Man and try to kill him or something while they were fighting the bad guys. Which I've been thinking. I think their name is like Incubators or something.
I have no idea.
But so that didn't happen, which kind of left me a bit cold because it seemed like they were kind of going to build up to a conflict between those two. And who knows, that
Yeah.
might happen in this epilogue, but
That's what I was gonna say actually. So this is a good segue. I feel like a lot of the bigger like emotional payoffs that they've maybe been building to, like stuff with the Uncle Ben Spider-Man, and like you said, stuff with Superior Spider-Man, and like a more like a bigger thing for like Miles. I feel like a lot of that stuff's gonna be addressed in the epilogue. So this as the quote unquote final piece of the story, like you said, leaves me a little cold. I'm not sure that epilogue is really the right word for it, so much as like the actual ending.
yeah. Another thing that I'd be curious about going forward with Amazing Spider-Man is like these bad guys kind of sucked out like I don't know, the essence of all these spiders, and Moylan kind of started doing that to Peter. So I wonder, like, if in the next few issues or the next story arc or two of Amazing Spider-Man, if he's gonna somehow have diminished powers or something.
I don't know. I mean, that seems like it could be pretty easily explained away. It's just resting builds it back up.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to say about Spider-Verse?
No, I think that about covers it.
All right. So the next issue we're gonna talk about is Batgirl 39. I'll let you kind of take the lead on this one again.
Yeah. So this is the most recent issue of that new Batgirl series. I'm not sure. Have we talked about this series on here before?
Uh, I think we talked about it before it actually started.
Okay. Well, it's we've been enjoying it. I think you've been a little colder on it than I have been necessarily.
Yeah, that is true. Because I mean,
So
I like Batgirl a lot. I was expecting this to kind of like become my favorite ongoing, which it has not happened. I
yeah,
described it to you as like every issue to me is like a solid B, which is much lower than I was hoping.
right. And we talked about this a little bit uh, in our own time, but there was one kind of major emotional beat in this issue that we both kind of feel was a little on the weaker side. Throughout the whole run so far, there's been a big conflict between Barbara, the main character, and Dinah Lance, who's the Black Canary. And they were friends, previously, and then from the start of the run, they've been in conflict. And basically, Dinah's been really catty with her, like the whole series, and kind of just sniping at her at every turn she got. And then they had kind of a big falling out at the end of last issue. And this issue has them make up, but in kind of a really cheap and unsatisfying way.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to find it in here, and obviously we're gonna try to avoid specifics, but yeah, there's a point. So Dinah joined a band, and she's the lead singer, and they were performing some concert, and like they were hosting for a concert, and Barbara goes to the practice to try to like to make up with with Dinah, and like nothing bad happens between them. Like you get the feeling that Dinah is kind of starting to be okay again with Barbara. At least that's what I got out of that scene. But then like the very next panel, on the next page, Barbara has her cell phone open and is thinking about deleting Dinah's contact info and is crying. But then like 2 pages later, they're best friends again.
Yeah, well, I think this scene, this whole sequence, kind of doesn't make Barbara look super great, just because, like you said, I think the art really comes through on this page with when she's trying to apologize to Dinah, because you can tell that Dinah's really conflicted about it. Like she sort of feels like you can just see it in her face. Like she wants to forgive her, but she, for whatever reason, can't right now, and is just busy and doesn't want to have to deal with this kind of big emotional thing. And then Barbara jumps straight to, well, I guess we'll never be friends again.
Yeah,
And it's
extreme reaction.
really, yeah, it's definitely a really strange reaction to that moment. And then Dinah comes to her rescue, and that's a nice moment. Like I almost wish that the scene with Dinah had been rougher. Like if they had like maybe not another falling out, but just another like fight or something, that because then we get this payoff where they're friends and they fight and they argue, but when one of them's in danger, then all that goes away and they help each other.
Yeah, and once they're friends again, them being friends again makes me more interested in the book, because I mean I like that relationship because I've read a lot of Gail Simone's Birds of Prey run, which is like almost entirely situated around that friendship. And so like I'm glad that it came back, but like the manner in which it did was unsatisfying.
Yeah, and I've got to say too, I mean, the artwork in this book is top notch as always. Like I think we're both pretty big fans of it. It's definitely one of the bigger selling points, and I think the actual like overarching plot to the book really took a leap forward in this issue.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about, but I'll let you finish real quick.
Yeah, like I think the first couple issues of the run I enjoyed because they were like kind of episodic adventures of Batgirl getting used to her new surroundings and stuff, and we might have had some minor quibbles here and there. And then I think my major criticism for the past couple has just been the way they've turned, like we just talked about, the way they've turned the relationship with Dinah around is a little abrupt. But I really like this this kind of twist they've been playing up for the past 2 or 3 issues that kind of fully gets revealed at the end of this one.
Speaking of abrupt, I have a problem with the way this issue starts and the way the last issue ended. So last issue, you kind of got the gist that Burnside, which is the neighborhood that Batgirl is set in currently, is kind of turning on her because she had been superheroing and people there kind of loved her, and then she did something that destroyed a diner, and people kind of started saying like because at the last couple pages of last issue, Barbara was like looking at tweets and like people saying like, oh, Batgirl sucks now and stuff like that. And that jumps immediately to this issue starting with an angry mob trying to kill her.
Yeah, I
Like
agree. I thought the same thing.
there's
Uh,
one person. It's like six people, a 6 person mob. One has like a what looks like a broomstick, one has a lead pipe, one has a rolling pin, and then one has a baseball bat covered in nails.
yeah.
Like,
Uh,
there's only
when I
one thing that he's gonna do with that, and that is murder a superhero.
when I first started reading this issue, I thought that uh, I had missed one for some reason, and I checked the numbering, and I was still on track. And I was wondering if this was maybe the tie-in issue with what's going on in Batman, because the whole city is going crazy in that book right now. But it's not. It's just really abrupt. Let's murder this superhero thing, which is really bizarre.
Yeah, and like what you said you thought you missed an issue. What I was expecting was that it would be one of those like one of the things you see all the time on TV shows where something like crazy is going down and then it cuts to like 48 hours earlier.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
kind of
I
thought
mean
the
that
same.
never happened. I was totally expecting like when she gets away from the mob, it cut to the next page and it would say like 24 hours earlier, and then it would lead up to why people were on a rooftop trying to kill a superhero.
Yeah, yeah. It's and I mean, one dude full on leaps across the roof after her at one point, and almost dies. And she pulls him back up, and then he attacks her again. And so I'm with you. Like I really thought that there was going to be some bigger thing that made the citizens of the town she's in now, or the part of town, go crazy. But no, that's just what they're doing.
Yeah, but like you said, I like overall I do like where the plot is going, and like the cliffhanger was really good. It reminded me of something from that Birds of Prey run.
Yeah, I would say like if I had to put like a final like ultimate word on this issue, I would say that it's one of the weaker ones of the run so far. Um, in that kind of the entire first half of it, I think is not too great. But then once the relationship between the two characters we talked about is mended, then it starts kind of picking up in a way that I really like. So I'm definitely looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, this issue kind of treaded water. Basically, it almost seems like looking at it now again that like the entire issue is about Dinah and Barbara becoming friends again. Because like other than the very last scene, the overarching plot doesn't really move forward. All right, the next issue we're going back to Marvel. Yeah, back to Marvel, and we're going to be talking about Silk #1. And Silk is like a central character in Spider Verse. She was bitten by the same spider that bit Peter, but she's been like living in a bunker for the last 15 years or something, so she's only just now kind of coming out. And I liked this issue a lot. The art by Stacey Lee is a lot of fun. It reminds me a bit of Batgirl actually.
Yeah, I think there's a similarity there. I think the art. I think this stuff has a little bit more of a um, it wears its anime influence a little bit further down its sleeve, which is fine, but it has more of like a cartoony sensibility than even Batgirl does. But it works really well for the book.
Since this is like a #1 issue, I don't want to give anything too much away, but one thing that I love is how it's kind of building itself up. It seems to be reverse, like a reverse of the early Peter Parker days, because she also works at a television station this time, and her boss is J. Jonah Jameson, but he seems to be making Silk out to be an actual hero, conflicting with Spider-Man. So it's kind of like a 180 of the dynamic that Peter had when he worked for the Bugle and when he worked for Jameson.
hmm I think also one thing I like about the book is just that she's kind of like a fish out of water when it comes to the whole superhero thing. Like I like that a lot. I think that's a nice place to be because I think we kind of get a lot of books of of superheroes nowadays who kind of know what they're doing, you know? Like we don't get a lot of the new, and that was one thing I really liked about Ms. Marvel too, is they're kind of figuring out how to make it work, you know? And I think that a lot of the comedy beats in this issue are from that, you know, that dynamic of her trying to figure out just how this is done. Like I'm looking right now at the page where she like punches that guy and launches him all the way into like that dumpster and stuff.
Yeah, and
And
then she's like saying to herself, "Please don't be dead."
yeah, like that's a really funny that whole sequence is really funny, I think.
I mean, I don't know about you. I know that at the moment you kind of have a tighter comics budget than I do. I'm definitely going to keep reading still. What about you?
I think I'll be waiting to hear from you on the second issue just because I think the like it has a lot of things I like. Like I think the humor is really nice. Like I said, her trying to figure out how to be a superhero is fun, and she has this whole mission where she's trying to find her family, which gives the book a nice like distinct direction to go in. But there's like a cliffhanger at the end that kind of left me cold that I feel like was supposed to have more punch to it that I'm not quite getting out of this issue. But I'll definitely want you to let me know how it is, and I'll go from there.
All right. So the last issue we're going to talk about is another book that I think we both love, which is All New Captain America #4.
I just love this book.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I'll let you have more Captain America expertise, I think, than I do. So I'll let you guide this one again.
I mean I don't know about that. I just love Captain America. I'm a big fan of the kind of like the earnest, you know, heroic types like Captain America and Superman. I really like those, and I like this book for a number of reasons. But I think Sam Wilson is a really good character to try and take up the mantle in a similar vein that that Bucky was a few years back when he was doing it. Just because I think they're both like more human guys that have worked closely with Steve, who kind of have looked up to him and have you know tried to emulate him, and now they're like actually wielding, you know, wearing his uniform and all that, and trying to live up to that. And I think it's really awesome. I think Wilson fills the shoes fantastically. I think you know we've gotten they've been tying a lot of these issues in with like flashbacks to his past, particularly like moments with his family, or in the instance of this issue, him talking to Steve about like having a family one day, and it's really good. Like there's a lot of you know I think the main conflict ties into that idea nicely too. Like there's a lot of thematic kind of stuff going on that I really like. And last but not least, Stuart Immonen draws this book, and he is probably my all-time favorite artist. He's freaking amazing, and so every inch of this book is just gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean, I love Eamon too. I kind of have a hard time nailing down who my favorite artist is because I mean I read All New Captain America and I think that oh my god Eamon's the best, and then I read Gotham Academy and I think that Clark Koshal's the best, and then I just kind of vacillate. But it has to be the best looking Marvel book for sure to me anyway.
Yeah, I think, and you know, I've been reading Immonen's comics for like a long time now, and I just, oh man, the guy can just draw anything and make it look freaking amazing. Like there's just so much dynamism and energy to it, but it's all like the impacts are all really strong. Ah, so good.
Yeah, and it almost seems like he can peg different styles of art in his books because he was the one who wrote and did the art for Secret Identity, right?
Yeah, the Superman book.
Yeah.
I don't. He didn't write it, but he did the art for it.
Okay. But like the art in that doesn't look like the art that he's been doing for All New Cap and then All New X-Men when he was on that book.
Yeah. that's one of my favorite things about him too. Is he's got so many styles under his belt. Like if you've ever seen his personal work is very minimalist and kind of sparse and looks really good. The Superman Secret Identity book is like very kind of like photorealistic almost, almost like Rockwellian, if that's an adjective. And then you haven't read it yet, but he did the art for Next Wave, which is an old Marvel book from like the mid 2000s, and that has a much like cartoonier vibe than the other stuff he's done, and it's also really awesome. Like he could just do anything.
Yeah, I mean that's unless you have anything else to say about Cap, that's pretty much it for the comics that we were going to talk about.
No, yeah, I mean, I think this issue was really awesome. I think it gives you some good moments where you know Wilson's taking down the bad guys and stuff, but it leaves things in a place where well, at least for me, I'm seriously wondering how he's gonna, you know, save the day next issue, which is always a nice place to be with superhero books, is that suspense,
Yeah. All right, so that's it. I was thinking while we were doing this actually. Three good books come out next week, but at the very least we should do like a mini episode about Spider-Gwen.
Yes, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that book. I'm sure we'll both have plenty to say about it.
Yeah, that comes out next week. So does Batman, and I think I told you another book that I forget.
Yeah, Gotham Academy, your favorite book ever.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. So we might end up. I mean, who knows? We might, if we do this style thing next week, we'll probably just talk about those three books. So it won't be long, but our episodes are trending shorter, which I think is an okay thing.
Yeah, that's not a bad place to be.
Yeah. So pick up really. All these comics, I would say, are worth your money. Maybe not Uncanny, but I mean, Cap definitely is.
Yes, Cap is absolutely worth your money. I think Batgirl and Silk as well for sure.
Yeah, and then obviously, if you've been reading Spider-Verse, get that. But if you haven't, then you would be incredibly confused. So maybe just wait until the next issue.
Yeah.
All right, so Jack and I will return sometime next week. We're gonna do that comic podcast for sure next week, and we also have a treat that we've talked about before, but I'm not gonna say it right now. So in case you forget, it'll be a surprise. But it should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
All right, so thanks for listening. I'm Nick Cioli,
I'm Jack Cioli.
and have a good day.